My name is Lillian Brooks. And when I was 15 years old, my parents moved me into the garage so my younger sister could turn my bedroom into a content studio. At the time, I thought humiliation was the worst thing they could do to me. I was wrong. Because 2 years later, after my grandfather died, they found out he'd been quietly watching everything. And before I tell you what happened next, hit subscribe and tell me where you're listening from. I still read every comment, especially the late-night ones. Now let me take you back to the night my mother carried my blankets into the garage like it was completely normal. It was raining outside. Not heavy rain. The kind that taps softly against windows and makes a house feel warmer than it really is. Except I wasn't inside the house anymore. I was standing barefoot in the garage while my mom pointed at an old camping mattress beside stacked Christmas decorations and paint cans. "It's temporary," she said. Behind her, my sister Ava stood in my bedroom doorway smiling so hard she could barely hide it. She was 13. Blonde. Perfect teeth. Perfect skin. The kind of girl adults instantly adored. Meanwhile I was taller, quieter, awkward in photos, and constantly told I had an attitude anytime I disagreed with anything. "We just need more space," my dad said without looking at me. More space. That was the phrase they used. Not, "We're giving your room away." Not, "Your sister complained until we picked her." Just, more space. Ava had started a social media channel a few months earlier. Makeup tutorials, dance clips, mini vlogs. And suddenly my parents treated her like she was already famous. Dad bought her studio lights before he fixed the leak above the kitchen sink. Mom painted my walls blush pink because Ava said white backgrounds performed better on camera. Nobody asked how I felt. At first, I thought maybe it really was temporary. Then I noticed they removed my name from the bedroom door. That was the moment something inside me shifted. The garage smelled like gasoline and wet cardboard. At night, I could hear the water heater clicking behind me. During winter, the cold crawled through the blanket no matter how many layers I used. And every morning before school, I had to walk back inside carrying my backpack so Ava's friends wouldn't see where I slept. My parents acted like this was normal. Like I was overreacting. "You're older," Mom would say, "you should be more mature about sacrifices." Sacrifices. Funny how the same child is always expected to sacrifice. 3 weeks after I moved into the garage, Grandpa Walter came over for dinner. And that night changed everything. He arrived wearing the same brown jacket he always wore, carrying a paper bag full of peaches from the farmer's market. The moment he stepped into the garage looking for an extension cord, he froze. I still remember his face. Not angry. Not confused. Just quiet. Too quiet. "Elena," he said slowly, "why are your things out here?" Before I could answer, my mom appeared behind him. "Oh, it's temporary," she said quickly. "Ava needs space for school projects and filming." Grandpa looked past her into the house. Then back at me. And I realized something terrifying. He knew she was lying. That night at dinner, nobody mentioned the garage. But Grandpa kept watching. Watching Ava complain because her steak was slightly overcooked. Watching my dad laugh at every joke she made. Watching me clear dishes while everyone else stayed seated. At one point, he quietly asked me, "How are your grades?" "Still first in my class," I said. Dad snorted softly. "Book smart doesn't always mean successful." Ava giggled. And Grandpa stopped eating. I didn't understand it then. But years later, I would remember the exact way he set his fork down. Slowly, carefully. Like he had just made a decision. After dinner, he asked me to help carry peaches to his truck. Outside, the air smelled like rain and pine trees. He opened the tailgate slowly. Then he handed me a small brass key. I stared at it. "What's this?" "Storage unit," he said, "just some old things." "Why are you giving it to me?" His eyes moved toward the house. Because some people confuse value with usefulness. I didn't understand what he meant. Not yet. But I kept the key. The next 2 years were the loneliest years of my life. The garage became permanent. My parents stopped pretending otherwise. Ava's room got upgraded constantly. LED lights, New furniture. A mini fridge. A vanity mirror worth more than my laptop. Meanwhile, rain leaked through the garage ceiling every spring. One night I woke up because water was dripping beside my mattress. I grabbed towels alone at 2 a.m. While inside the house, my family slept peacefully. That was the moment I stopped trying to earn their love. I became invisible instead. And invisible people notice everything. I noticed my parents were drowning financially. Dad's business was failing. Mom had started hiding bills inside kitchen drawers. And Ava still believed she was the center of the universe. Then Grandpa Walter got sick. It happened fast. Too fast. 1 month he was fixing fences at his lake cabin. The next he was in a hospital bed staring out a window at snow. I visited every weekend. My parents barely went. They always had reasons. Too busy, too tired, too far. But whenever money came up, they suddenly found time. One afternoon, I walked into Grandpa's hospital room and heard my father whispering near the window. "What happens with the cabin?" Dad asked. Grandpa didn't answer immediately. "The cabin stays with family," he finally said. Dad smiled. And for a second, I saw greed. Real greed. Not stress, not worry. Expectation. That night, Grandpa asked me to stay after visiting hours. The hospital room was dim except for the monitor glowing beside him. "Lillian," he said quietly, "do you know why I gave you that key?" I shook my head. "Because you're the only person in this family who knows how to protect something instead of consume it." My throat tightened. "I'm not strong enough for that." He smiled faintly. "Yes, you are." Then he reached beside the bed and handed me an envelope. "Don't open this until after I'm gone." My hands started shaking immediately. "Grandpa." "Elena." His voice became firmer. "They will pressure you when I die." The room went silent. "You need to remember something," he whispered. "People show their true character when money enters the room." 3 weeks later, he died. The funeral was packed. Neighbors, business owners, church friends. Everyone talking about how generous Grandpa Walter had been. Meanwhile, my parents sat in the front row discussing the lake cabin parking situation before the service even started. I wish I was exaggerating. I'm not. After the burial, Ava posted a crying selfie online captioned, "Miss you forever Grandpa broken heart." Then spent 20 minutes checking likes in the church bathroom. I remember staring at her thinking, how did we become this family? That night, my dad finally brought up the cabin openly. "We'll probably sell it," he said while eating leftover casserole. "Market's good right now." I looked at him carefully. Grandpa said he wanted it kept in the family. Dad sighed dramatically. "Elena, you're young. You don't understand adult finances." Mom nodded. "That cabin could save this family." Save. Interesting word. Because nobody had tried saving me when I was freezing in the garage. Then Dad leaned forward. "There's also Grandpa's investment accounts." And suddenly, everything clicked. This wasn't grief. This was inventory. Before I tell you what happened next, comment below. Have you ever realized too late that someone only cared when money was involved? Because what happened after Grandpa's will reading still doesn't feel real to me. 3 days later, I opened the envelope. Inside was a business card. Margaret Holloway, estate attorney. And beneath it, a handwritten note from Grandpa. "Elena, if you're reading this, it means they already started counting what isn't theirs. Call Margaret first before anyone else." My stomach dropped. The next morning, I skipped school and went downtown alone. Margaret's office smelled like coffee and old paper. She looked about 60. Silver hair, sharp eyes. The kind of woman who notices everything. The moment I sat down, she studied me quietly. Then she asked, "Are you still sleeping in the garage?" I froze. "What?" "Your grandfather told me about it." The room went completely silent. And suddenly, I realized Grandpa had known for years. Margaret opened a folder slowly. "Elena, your grandfather changed his will 18 months ago." My heartbeat started pounding. The lake cabin, his investment portfolio, and the trust attached to his land holdings. She slid the papers toward me. were all left to you. I couldn't breathe. What? He also left specific instructions. Margaret adjusted her glasses. If your parents attempt to pressure, manipulate, or remove you from the property, the trust becomes fully protected under an irrevocable clause. My father had spent years treating me like unwanted storage in his own house. And Grandpa had quietly built an entire legal wall around my future. I started crying immediately. Not because of the money. Because someone finally saw me. Margaret leaned forward softly. Your grandfather loved you very much. Then she said something I'll never forget. He told me, Elena survives quietly. People like that either disappear, or become unbreakable. I cried all the way home. But when I pulled into the driveway, I saw a real estate developer's truck outside the house. Dad was already trying to sell the cabin. And he had no idea it wasn't his. The next part. That's where everything exploded. Dad invited family over that Sunday night. Uncles, neighbors. Ava's boyfriend, even church friends. It looked like a celebration. At first, Dad stood near the dining table holding a drink like he'd already won something. Then he tapped his glass. I've got good news, he announced proudly. We're officially preparing to sell the lake property. People clapped. Actually clapped. My stomach turned. Then Dad smiled directly at me. And Elena understands this is the best decision for the family. The room looked at me, waiting, expecting obedience. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Then Ava laughed softly and said, finally, that old cabin smells weird anyway. And something inside me snapped. Not loudly. Quietly. Dangerously quietly. I stood up slowly. I don't think you should promise people things you don't legally own. The room went silent instantly. Dad's smile disappeared. What does that mean? I looked at him carefully. It means Grandpa changed the will. Nobody moved. Mom actually laughed nervously. Elena, stop being dramatic. So I reached into my bag and placed the trust documents on the table. I still remember the sound of the papers sliding across the wood. Dad grabbed them first. His face changed color line by line. Confusion, disbelief, fear. Then rage. This is fake. It's recorded with the county, I said calmly. You can call Margaret Holloway tomorrow. Ava looked back and forth between us like she was watching a tennis match. Mom grabbed the papers next. This says you own the cabin. And the investment accounts, I replied. Dad slammed his hand on the table so hard the glasses rattled. You manipulated him. That hurt more than I expected. Not because it was true. Because deep down, he knew exactly why Grandpa chose me. The room felt smaller suddenly. Hotter. Then Dad said the sentence I think he regrets most. If you cared about this family at all, you'd sign it over. There it was. Finally. Not love, not apology, not regret. Just access. I looked around the room slowly. At the relatives avoiding eye contact. At Ava clutching her phone. At my mother staring at dollar amounts instead of me. And I realized something terrifying. Nobody had defended me when I was sleeping beside paint cans in the garage. Not one person. So why was I still trying to earn their approval? I folded the papers carefully. Then I stood up. No. Just, no. And for the first time in years, I felt powerful. I moved into Grandpa's cabin 2 weeks later. The garage stayed exactly how I left it. Mattress, water stains, cold concrete floor. Dad never apologized. Mom texted occasionally pretending nothing happened. Ava became an influencer for about 6 more months before people stopped watching. Funny how fast attention disappears when it isn't built on anything real. As for me, I started college nearby. Environmental science. Grandpa's investment trust paid every tuition bill. And every morning, I drink coffee on the same porch where Grandpa once told me some people confuse value with usefulness. Now I finally understand what he meant. Because the people who treated me like I was worthless were the same people who couldn't recognize real value standing right in front of them. That's my story. And if this video meant something to you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, I want you to remember this. Sometimes the people who love you most are the ones quietly protecting you when nobody else notices. And sometimes survival itself becomes the thing that saves your future. Before you go, tell me in the comments. What's one moment that changed how you saw your family forever? And if you stayed until the end, thank you. I really mean that.